The day came with a stillness that felt unnatural, as if the very air had paused in anticipation of what was to unfold. Francesca had grown accustomed to the quiet of their home, but this silence carried a weight unlike any she had felt before. John sat near the window, his hand resting lightly on the arm of his chair, eyes distant, yet somehow still aware of her presence. She approached him slowly, her steps careful, as though any sudden movement might shatter the fragile thread of time they had clung to. He looked at her then, fully, as if seeing her in a way he had never needed to before. The gentleness in his gaze had always been constant, but now it carried a quiet finality that made her chest tighten. "Francesca," he whispered, his voice softer than ever, "I wish I could stay a little longer." She wanted to tell him that time could be stopped, that their peace could remain uninterrupted, but words failed her. All she could do was reach for his hand, feeling the frailty beneath the familiar warmth. The hours stretched thin, every second a reminder of the impermanence of life, of love, of everything they had built together. Francesca watched as John's strength waned, the once subtle signs of illness now undeniable. She did not cry, though her heart ached. Tears felt inadequate against the enormity of what was happening. Instead, she held his hand, letting silence speak the words that neither needed to voice. And in that silence she understood more than ever the depth of their bond, the love that had grown quietly, patiently, and had filled the spaces of her life she hadn't even known were empty. Even as the end drew near, John remained considerate, ensuring her comfort, easing her fears with gentle smiles and faint reassurances. Francesca could see the effort it took him to maintain composure, to protect her from the full weight of his suffering, and her heart broke further for the man who had given her everything he had, even as his life slipped away. And when the moment finally came, it was quiet, almost peaceful, yet the silence that followed was deafening. Francesca sat alone with him, the reality of loss pressing down like a weight she had never imagined. The home that had once been filled with subtle joy, music, and shared understanding now echoed with absence. Memories of their life together, every gentle touch, every carefully chosen word, every quiet gesture of devotion flashed in her mind, both beautiful and unbearably painful. She realized that love, no matter how perfect, cannot always stave off the inevitability of fate. The life they had imagined, the steady rhythm they had cherished, had been cut short in the cruelest of ways. And yet, even in grief, she could not deny the gift of what they had shared. The love that had been patient, quiet, and true had transformed her. It had shown her that connection could exist without chaos, that understanding could surpass words, and that beauty could reside in stillness. She mourned him, yes, but she also carried the knowledge that their bond, though brief, had been profound, and that the essence of John, the kindness, the constancy, the quiet love, would remain with her forever. But the question that haunted her, the one that would linger long after the echoes of loss faded, remained. How does one go on when the person who made life feel whole is gone, leaving only memories that are too vivid to forget and too tender to bear?
Even as Francesca tried to hold on to the fragile threads of their life together, the weight of reality pressed closer with every passing day. John's illness, once subtle, began to assert itself more boldly. He tried to maintain his usual composure, greeting her with the same calm smile and steady gaze, but Francesca could see the strain etched into his features, the slight tremor in his hands, the pallor that no candlelight could soften. She watched him navigate their home with care, never asking for help, never admitting weakness. And every time he insisted he was fine, her chest tightened, as if the very act of his denial threatened to break something she could never repair. Francesca, who had spent her life valuing quiet and stillness, found herself consumed by fear. She longed for moments of normalcy, where conversation could flow and music could fill the rooms, but the specter of loss hung over every gesture, every word. Their love had been quiet, but now it carried a different kind of weight, a silent urgency that no society ball, no carefully chosen word could alleviate. The peaceful life she had envisioned with John was slipping through her fingers, and she felt powerless to stop it. Even in the most ordinary moments, she noticed the small ways his presence had become both fragile and precious. The way he would pause mid-step, as though measuring his own strength. The way he lingered over simple tasks, knowing they mattered more than they ever had. Francesca tried to anchor herself in the minutiae. The way his voice softened when he spoke to her, the gentle attentions that had always been his signature. But the quiet terror that accompanied each gesture became impossible to ignore. Every glance carried unspoken questions. How much longer? Will this last? Can I bear to lose this? She thought about all the things she had never said, all the moments left unexpressed, and the realization came with brutal clarity. Love, no matter how deep, cannot always prevent heartbreak. She had believed in the serenity of their bond, the steady rhythm that seemed unbreakable. But life, in its quiet cruelty, began to prove otherwise. The home they had built, the shared silences and small gestures, now felt as fragile as glass, and Francesca felt the first real pangs of helplessness. Even as she prepared herself to face the inevitable, there were fleeting moments of beauty, moments where John's hand would brush hers and the world would vanish for a heartbeat, where laughter, soft and rare, would fill the air, reminding her of everything worth holding on to. But those moments were fleeting, like candlelight flickering against a storm. Francesca could sense the impending loss looming closer with every heartbeat, yet she could do nothing but witness it. And in that helplessness, she began to understand the cruelest truth of all. Sometimes love is not enough to save the ones you hold most dear. What would happen when the quietest love, the one they both trusted would endure forever, met a fate it could not escape? The days grew heavier, each one stretching longer than the last, filled with moments Francesca wished she could freeze in time. John, ever careful, tried to shield her from worry, but his strength was fading, imperceptibly at first, then with a clarity that no act of denial could hide. He continued to speak to her in that same measured, gentle way, as if their shared calm could stave off the inevitable, yet Francesca saw it in his eyes, the fatigue, the quiet resignation. She wanted to scream at fate, to demand that the world spare him, yet her voice felt small against the enormity of what was coming. Their home, once a sanctuary of soft music and unspoken understanding, became a place marked by tension and fragility. Francesca noticed every cough, every pause in his step, every hesitation in his normally confident manner. She found herself watching him more closely than ever before, memorizing the lines of his face, the subtle shifts in expression, the way his hands rested lightly on the piano keys. Each observation was a cruel reminder that time was slipping, that moments they had once assumed were endless were in fact numbered. Even their conversations, normally calm and deliberate, began to carry an undercurrent of urgency. Francesca found herself asking questions she had never thought to ask, seeking reassurance where none could truly be given. John, in turn, tried to maintain his composure, offering smiles that hid the strain, soft words that disguised worry. Yet Francesca could see it through all. She had always been attuned to him, to the rhythm of his presence, and now that awareness was a double-edged sword. Every detail she noticed became evidence of the approaching loss she could not